Welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to get into some scenario testing today?
Oh, absolutely. Love me some good scenario testing.
Yeah. So we'll be looking at how it's used in software development. I mean, you've heard about testing features, right?
Right.
But scenario testing, this is like taking it a step further. It's like, how do people actually use the software?
Yeah, the whole story, basically. Like their motivations, what's going on around them, the whole context.
Exactly, exactly. And our source material for this one, it's got this wild story, a postage stamp bug, they call it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. A real-world example of how, like, a simple scenario, boom, uncovers this huge problem.
Yeah, totally. So we're going to break down what makes these scenarios so powerful and how they're not just about finding bugs, you know?
Right, right.
There's more to it. We'll look at the downsides too, of course. Every tool has its limits, right?
Absolutely.
So to kick things off, can you explain what makes scenario testing special? Like what sets it apart?
So think of it this way. Traditional testing might be like checking if each button works, right?
Yeah.
But scenario testing asks, can the user actually get what they need done using these buttons in their normal setting? Like looking at the whole system like a journey.
So it's not just pieces working, but like working together in a way that makes sense.
Exactly.
You mentioned making the scenario motivating, though. What's that about?
Oh, yeah. It has to matter if the scenario fails.
Okay.
Think about that postage stamp bug story.
Yeah.
The first report just said the bug, plain and simple.
Yeah. No story, no drama.
Exactly. Then someone said a mom couldn't make her Girl Scout newsletter. A bit
And
better.
still not enough to be like, this must be fixed.
Right. Risk versus reward. But then the marketing team got involved.
Oh, yeah, I remember this part.
The third report said, hey, we can't even copy a PageMaker ad.
Yeah.
Now that got everyone's attention.
Because it hit their marketing, like, directly.
Right. So same bug, different framing, completely different impact.
Wow, that's crazy.
It shows you a strong scenario. It's a story that people actually care about.
It's got to be believable, too, right? Like something that could happen for real.
Totally. And complex enough, multiple features involved, and with a clear outcome, pass or fail.
Yeah. So those are the 5 things. Motivating, believable, complex, clear results, and telling a story.
Exactly.
I'm seeing how this is way more than just finding bugs now.
Absolutely. It makes you think like the user. What are their goals? What bugs them? How do they actually work?
You uncover some surprising stuff that way.
You do.
So it's about improving how the whole thing works for the user, not just squashing bugs.
Exactly. You might find usability issues early on, or see if the software really delivers what it's supposed to.
Oh, interesting.
You could even find issues with the requirements themselves, like sometimes a scenario shows everyone disagrees on how the software should work.
Even if they wrote it all down nicely beforehand.
Yep. It's like this bridge between the techie side of the software and what the people using it actually need.
That's cool.
And some problems only show up after you've used it for a while. Say you're testing a banking system.
Okay, yeah.
A short test might not tell you much, but if you simulate months of use, transactions.
You might see things slowing down, data getting messed up.
Exactly. Like a stress test, but for the real world.
Speaking of stress tests, I was curious about those disfavored users in the source material. What are they all about?
Oh, that's where things get really fun. We think about not just good users, but how someone might try to break the system.
So not clicking buttons nicely anymore.
More like, how can we cause some chaos? But in a controlled way, of course.
Right, of course.
This disfavored user idea helps find security holes, data problems.
To make sure those bad actions don't actually work.
Exactly. Then there's simulating a whole mock business. That's another technique they talk about.
Mock business? I don't get it.
Imagine software for a store, right? So we make a fake business, fake customers, inventory, sales.
Oh,
Then you can use the software like in real life. You
Yeah.
find hidden issues, bottlenecks, the whole experience.
so instead of just features, it's the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. And you learn a lot from that kind of real-world simulation.
This is getting pretty strategic. It's not just following steps, it's exploring, right?
Totally right.
Oh.
And for that, they have these 12 techniques to help you come up with killer scenarios. They get you thinking outside the box.
12 techniques. That's a lot. Tell me more about these techniques. What are some of the good ones?
One that really gets you thinking is writing life histories for objects.
Mm.
It's like, imagine the whole life of something in the system.
Okay.
So say you're building software for insurance policies.
Yeah.
Think about like everything that policy goes through, from when someone applies to renewals, claims, maybe they cancel it.
It's like giving the policy a whole story, a life of its own.
Exactly. You think about all the stages, what could happen.
And you might find those weird edge cases, things you wouldn't think of otherwise.
Right, those things that could go wrong at each step. You got to go beyond the happy path.
And what about those disfavored users we were talking about? Any special techniques for finding the vulnerabilities there?
Oh, definitely. One is think like an embezzler.
Okay, now hold on. I'm not saying I want to embezzle.
No, no, of course not. But you put yourself in the shoes of someone trying to, exploit the system.
To find the weak spots, the data problems.
Exactly. It's like a game almost. Cat and mouse. You think, what would a sneaky person do?
And that helps build better defenses.
Right. Makes the system stronger. Then there's this idea of user personas. Have you heard of those?
User personas? Not really.
So it's like making up fake people who represent your real users.
Yeah.
You might have, say, tech-savvy Sarah. She's good with computers.
Oh, okay.
Or cautious Carl. Who needs more guidance?
So instead of just like a generic user.
You're designing for specific types of people, their needs, how they behave.
That makes sense. Make the whole thing easier to use, I bet.
Exactly. You understand their goals, what bugs them. Makes a big difference.
I can see how these techniques could be combined too, like tech-savvy Sarah trying to be an embezzler?
Yeah, exactly. Mix and match them, tweak them, use them in different ways. It's all about being flexible.
This is great stuff, but it sounds like it could take forever. Making all these scenarios, the user types, doesn't it get overwhelming?
That's a good point. You got to be strategic about it. It's not testing everything, it's picking the important stuff.
The ones most likely to cause trouble.
Right. And you don't need every scenario at once. You can start small and then keep adding as you learn more.
Finding the right balance, like being thorough but not getting lost in the detail.
Exactly. And there are tools to help, for making test data, keeping track of results.
That's good to know.
And don't forget about collaborating. Working together is huge.
Collaboration? How so?
You get the developers, testers, designers, even the product people, all in a room, brainstorming scenarios together.
Oh, I see.
Everyone sees things a little differently, so you're more likely to catch stuff that way.
Makes it a team effort, not just one person's job.
Exactly. Everyone understands the software better that way, and the whole process runs smoother.
This all sounds great, but aren't we still going to miss things sometimes? Even if we do everything right?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to be honest, yeah, probably. No single test is perfect. There's always going to be something unexpected.
So what's the point then if we can't get it 100% right?
Because even though we can't catch everything, scenario testing gets us closer to finding the really important issues.
The ones that really matter to people using the software.
Exactly. It's like instead of waiting for problems to pop up and then fixing them.
You're trying to guess what those problems will be and stop them before they happen?
Right. It's about reducing risk, making the software more reliable, higher quality overall.
That's a goal I can get behind. But we've been talking about all the good stuff. Are there downsides to scenario testing? When wouldn't it be a good fit?
Good question. That's something else our source material talks about. Scenario testing, it's not a magic bullet,
Okay, I'm listening.
It has its limits. For example, it's not great for testing code that's still early, still a bit messy.
Like trying to run a marathon before you can even walk.
Exactly. If the code's got basic bugs, trying fancy scenarios will just frustrate everyone.
Gotta use the right tool for the job.
Right. And there are pitfalls, too, mistakes people make. One is not writing down the scenarios properly.
Oh, so you can remember what you did and why.
Exactly. And so others can understand it. Makes everything repeatable, consistent.
Documentation is key, as always.
Right. Another mistake is using the same scenarios over and over again.
They get stale, maybe miss new problems that pop up.
Yeah, got to keep things fresh, just like the software itself.
So scenario testing, it's not just a one-time thing, it's ongoing. The team needs to be flexible, adapt as they go.
Totally. Now, we talked a lot about the technical side of things, but I'm curious about the people doing this work.
Yeah, what makes a good scenario tester? What kind of person are we looking for here?
It's a mix, You need the technical skills, but also you got to be creative.
Like being able to get inside the user's head.
Yeah. See what they need, what bugs them, how they'll actually use the thing, even the unexpected stuff.
So it's not just about does it work, it's does it work for them?
Exactly. So you got to know the technical stuff, but also understand people, like really get into their shoes.
And having all those different people on the team, developers, designers, product folks, that must help a lot.
It's huge. Get all those perspectives in one room, brainstorming, makes the whole process way more powerful, catches more stuff.
Speaking of catching stuff, we talked about how scenario testing has changed over time. What about the future of this? Any cool trends you're seeing?
One that's really exciting is AI, artificial intelligence.
Oh, wow. All right.
AI can analyze tons of data, figure out potential scenarios, even write test cases for you. Imagine simulating thousands of users.
All doing their own thing with
Mhm.
different preferences. Wow.
Yeah, so you can test way more than you ever could manually.
But does that mean human testers are out of a job? Will the robots take over?
Nah, not really. AI is a tool. It helps us, but it can't replace humans completely.
I mean, we're still better at some things.
Totally. We can think critically, be creative, understand people better. We know what's important, what issues need fixing first.
So it's like the best of both worlds, humans and AI working together.
Exactly. And that brings us to a really important point. Scenario testing, it never stands still. It keeps changing, just like technology and users do.
So it's not just a bunch of techniques, it's like a way of thinking, a mindset that's always adapting.
You get it. Always exploring, always improving, understanding our users better, making software that really fits their needs.
Well, listeners, that's a wrap on our deep dive into scenario testing. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We saw how scenario testing helps us find hidden problems, makes things better for users, brings teams together, and ultimately helps us build better software.
And it's not just about following instructions, it's about being creative, thinking like the people using the software, and always questioning our assumptions.
So remember, use those 12 techniques, let your imagination run wild, explore all those what-if scenarios.
Work with your team, use those AI tools if you have them, and never forget who you're building this for, the users.
Because at the end of the day, we want software that doesn't just work, but makes people happy to use it.
That's it for this deep dive. Happy testing, everyone.